ओके सो आज की वीडियो में आप लोग को कुछ अपडेट्स देना चाहता हूँ। शुरू में मैं जो अपडेट्स आप लोग को देने वाला हूँ ये ऑलरेडी गवर्नमेंट इसको अनाउंस कर चुकी है। कुछ दिनों पहले आप लोगों ने शायद यूट्यूब पर भी देखा हो, कुछ यूट्यूबर्स ने इससे रिलेटेड वीडियो बना रखी है। अगर आपने नहीं देखा है तो मेरी वीडियो में पता लग जाएगा क्या छोटे छोटे अपडेट्स आने वाले हैं नेक्स्ट ईयर में। एंड वीडियो के एंड में मैं CEO ऑफ हेल्प लेके आया हूँ। हेल्प बेसिकली स्टूडेंट जो भी इंडिया से कनाडा आ रहे हो वो लोग को इमिग्रेशन में हेल्प करता है, स्टडी परमिट अप्लाई करने में, वर्क परमिट, PR बेसिस में, कॉलेज सेलेक्ट करने में, सारे आपके प्रोसेस में हेल्प करता है। तो ये कंपनी के CEO को ही मैं लेके आया हूँ और ये आप लोग को इन डेप्थ बताएंगे कि ये जो लोगों के कांटेक्ट में बेसिकली हायर अथॉरिटीज़ के कांटेक्ट में भी रहते हैं ये, ताकि उनको पता लगे कौन से अपडेट्स आ रहे हैं। सो वो उसके हिसाब से आप लोग को आइडिया देंगे, उनको जो इन्फॉर्मेशन सुनने में आई है, और वो सारी चीज़ों के बारे में हम लोग एंड में डिस्कस करेंगे कि क्या इम्प्रूवमेंट्स हो सकते हैं जो अभी अनाउंस नहीं हुए बट हो सकते हैं। शुरू में मैं जो बोलूँगा वो ऑलरेडी अनाउंस हो चुके हैं। सबसे पहले मैं आप लोग को बताता हूँ जो स्प्रिंग 2024 में कनाडा नया अपडेट निकालने वाली है। नंबर 1, कॉलेजेस के अंदर गाइस बहुत ज़्यादा इंप्रूवमेंट्स देखने मिलेंगे। ये यूजुअली हम लोग के फेवर की ही बात है, जो भी स्टूडेंट्स आ रहे हैं कनाडा इंडिया से यहाँ पे वो लोग के फेवर में ही बोला गया है। क्या करेंगे ये लोग कि लेवल्स निकालेंगे कॉलेजेस के। लेवल 1 में क्या होगा कि रेप्यूटेड अच्छी नामचीन कॉलेजेस या यूनिवर्सिटीज़ आपको देखने मिलेगी, जहाँ पे वीज़ा अप्रूवल रेट ये लोग का बहुत अच्छा है, जहाँ पे वैरायटी ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स आप लोग को काफ़ी सारे देखने मिलेंगे। एंड इस तरीके की जो कॉलेजेस होती है ना, या यूनिवर्सिटीज़ या कॉलेजेस जो भी है, एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट्स एक तरीके से कहूँ तो, उनमें इस तरीके का लेवल 1 लेवल 2 में थोड़े कम रेप्यूटेड वाले, और लेवल 3 एकदम ही लो रेप्यूटेड वाले कॉलेजेस या यूनिवर्सिटीज़। इस तरीके का ये लोग सोच रहे हैं। मेक श्योर अगर आप लोग 2024 में अप्लाई कर रहे हो तो आप लोग रेप्यूटेड कॉलेजेस या यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में ही अप्लाई करो। कोई भी LFLA कॉलेज में अप्लाई मत कर देना, वरना बड़े ट्रबल में आ जाओगे। ठीक है, बिकॉज आप अप्लाई कर दोगे, फ़ी पे कर दोगे, जब वीज़ा अप्लाई करने के लिए जाओगे तो रिजेक्ट हो जाएगा। बिकॉज ये लोग उस वे में स्टूडेंट्स को भी बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं भरना चाहते हैं। ठीक है, वो तो इनके PR के रूल्स में भी क्लियरली दिख रहा है। बिकॉज अगर अभी के आप PR के सिस्टम देखोगे ना, तो जो भी प्रोफेशनल बहुत अच्छे जगह पे काम कर रहे हैं स्टूडेंट्स, जो भी इंडिया से आए अच्छे लेवल पे कंपनीज़ में काम कर रहे हैं, वो लोग के PR होने के चांसेस है। बट दूसरे जो नॉर्मल लेबर वर्क कर रहे हैं वो लोग को बहुत डिफ़िकल्ट हो जा रहा है। ठीक है, तो ये ऐसे लोगों को यहाँ लाना चाहते हैं जो यहाँ की गवर्नमेंट को और हेल्प करे आगे बूस्ट करने के लिए, ना कि जस्ट छोटे छोटे काम करते रह जाए। ठीक है, इस तरीके के हिसाब से ही ये लोग रूल्स निकालेंगे। तो नंबर 1, कॉलेजेस का मैटर बहुत करेगा। नंबर 2, कौन सा कोर्स ले रहे हो। मैंने हमेशा ये चीज़ कही है कि जो कोर्स ले रहे हो आप लोग, वो कोर्स को सोच समझ के लेना। ठीक है, बिकॉज वो कोर्स लेने के बाद ही डिपेंड करेगा कि आप आगे कौन से कंपनी में जाओगे या कंपनी में कौन सी पोजीशन पे जाओगे। ठीक है, अल्टीमेटली PR तो चाहिए ना, राइट। अगर आ रहे हो यहाँ पे तो PR के हिसाब से अपने कोर्स को सेलेक्ट करना, एंड सोच समझ के अपने नेचर को देख के ये सब मैच करके ही यहाँ पे आना। ठीक है, और ये जो लिस्ट है कॉलेजेस का या यूनिवर्सिटीज़ का, ये नेक्स्ट ईयर स्प्रिंग 2024 तक ये लोग IRCC या कहीं पे भी आपको अनाउंस हो जाएगा। मैं तभी भी वीडियो बना के आप लोगों को बताऊंगा जब ये लोग अनाउंस करेंगे, सो दैट एक क्लियर कट आइडिया रहे। बट जैसे मैंने आप लोगों को कहा, कोशिश करना ऐसी जगहों पे जाने की जहाँ पे कॉलेजेस या यूनिवर्सिटीज़ बहुत फेमस हो, जिनके नाम हो। ठीक है, बिकॉज अभी इनका क्या हो रहा है ना कि एक ही जगह पे सारे इंडियंस इकट्ठा हो जा रहे हैं। आप यूजुअली देखते होगे कॉनेस्टोगा है, हम्बर है, ये सब जगहों पे क्या है, अपने इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स ही आपको देखने मिलेंगे, वैरायटी देखने नहीं मिलेगी। कुछ कुछ कॉलेजेस जो है इनके ऊपर तो पक्का अपने इंडियन स्टूडेंट्स का कैप आने वाला है, बिकॉज इतने लोग, इनको एक ही जगह पे इंडियंस नहीं चाहिए। ये लोग अलग अलग कंट्री के स्टूडेंट्स भी चाहते हैं, ना कि खाली एक जगह से बंदे आए। ये देखेंगे पहले, उस हिसाब से इनका पूरा होगा कि फैकल्टी और स्टूडेंट्स का किस हिसाब से रेशियो है। बिकॉज अभी पिछले लास्ट ईयर क्या हुआ था कि बहुत ज़्यादा स्टूडेंट्स को एक जगह पे बुला लिया था और फैकल्टीज़ नहीं है, अकोमोडेशन प्रोवाइड करने के लिए लोग के पास जगह नहीं है, और इतने स्टूडेंट्स आ गए हैं। ये सब प्रॉब्लम हो रहे थे। इसको ध्यान में रखते हुए ये लोगों ने ये एक्शंस लिए है। आपके फ़ायदे के लिए ही है, आपको टेंशन लेने की ज़रूरत नहीं। बट आपको एक चीज़ का ध्यान रखना है, कौन सा कॉलेज, कौन सा कोर्स, ये 2 चीज़ें बहुत ही ध्यान से अच्छे से, वीज़ा अप्रूवल रेट कॉलेज का देखो, कॉलेज की रेपुटेशन देखो, उसका इनटेक देखो, किस तरीके के स्टूडेंट से क्या है, कोर्स देखो, और फिर अगर नेक्स्ट ईयर आना चाहते हो तो आना। ठीक है, तो ये छोटे छोटे अपडेट्स थे जो मेरे को आप लोग को देने थे। लिस्ट नेक्स्ट ईयर आएगी, जैसे मैंने आप लोग को कहा। अभी CEO ऑफ हेल्प के साथ बात करते हैं, देखते हैं उनकी राय क्या है। वो जो डिस्कशन उन्होंने किया था कुछ हायर अथॉरिटीज़ के साथ, उसमें उनको क्या पता लगा था। वीडियो पूरा देखो। I just said my audience that we are going to communicate about what's going to happen next in Canada, like in the coming years.
Got it.
Can you just give us a glimpse of what's, according to you, what's going to happen?
In what regard?
In regard to new students coming to Canada.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, I think that There are a few ways that we can look at this. When you think about Canada as a study abroad destination for international students, you want to understand, ultimately what is the job market going to look like now and in a few years. A lot of students come here and they want to do a study pathway program. They want to apply for PGWP, PR, and they want to work here, right? So you want to understand the likelihood that that can happen, what jobs Canada is going to be hiring for, and then back up and say, okay, how difficult will it be for me to actually accomplish that goal, given what I'm seeing in the headlines around maybe a housing crisis, maybe student caps, these types of things. So I think I'll address it in those ways, and I'll start with at the top of the journey when you're applying. Despite what you might read in headlines right now, Canada is safe, Canada is attainable, and Canada is a great place to study in terms of the ROI on your degree. There is not going to be, at least right now, a stated cap on students. There are some things going on geopolitically between Canada and India, but it actually is not going to change the number of students that we admit or how our government looks at an Indian student's application. It might deter some students that weren't super serious about Canada from applying, so your chances actually might be better than they were before. But our immigration office is open. We have, gaps in the job market. The schools and the number of seats for international students is going to remain constant or go up. So in terms of Canada as a target country relative to US, UK, Australia, I think that we would rank it at the top, right? It is safe here. You can get through it, and there is like a large Indian diaspora across the different provinces. So there's a support network already set up, right? Which are positive things. Next is, what's the infrastructure like once you're arriving and getting here? Well, that depends. You need to take and do very serious research into the program you want, the schools that offer that program, and then where the jobs are that program trains for, right? Because a blanket statement around a housing crisis or infrastructure lagging behind, there's nuance, right? Every city and college have different things when it comes to, financial aid and housing support, right? Working with the right person that has your right interests in mind and understands your goals and that can actually help you facilitate those goals then becomes really important, because whether or not you choose, British Columbia, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Nova Scotia, PEI, right? And then within those provinces, what city do you want to go to? And then within those cities, what college? And maybe you make the decision a different way, but all of them have different infrastructure and supports out there for students, right? And so I would say overall, if I'm a student and I'm looking at this, once I understand, okay, Canada is safe, Canada is attainable, Canada has a growing job and open job market where PGWP and PR are like right there for the taking, what is the best path for me to then realize that goal? Well, you need to speak with someone that knows. And often that is a support mechanism that is based in Canada that has your best interests in mind, of which help is one of them.
100%. But one more thing comes in mind, where like when people are coming to Canada, you might have heard that there are no part-time jobs, no accommodation available and all that stuff. So what is the government planning with respect to that?
Yeah, well, one, I wouldn't say that that's true, that there's no part-time jobs or no housing. It's not a guarantee for everybody, and you have to work hard and you have to recruit and you have to put yourself in the right position to succeed. A lot of people that work with people that maybe don't have their best interests in mind, people that have never been to Canada or don't understand the landscape, they get here and they end up in a position that isn't advantageous. I feel for them, reach out. We will try our best to course correct your situation. That said, what is the government going to do? Right now, I think that housing is provincial, but there are mandates at the federal level that they're doing to help. If you look at what Sean Fraser is doing with cities and provinces, they are changing. For example, one thing that they're doing is looking at the regulations in municipalities and how to build more supply, right? And how can we make existing, residentials into potential rental units, these types of things. So I think that the supply will go up, the price can remain constant or come down, but there will be more places to stay. In terms of getting a part-time job, there are tons of places that are hiring in all of the provinces and cities that I mentioned. It might be a little more difficult in some versus others, but online or offline part-time jobs exist. They just changed the policy like within the last year so that you can work 15, 20 hours a week, which is great in terms of subsidizing your education. And it doesn't have to be as like a delivery driver, for example, which also there's nothing wrong with that. But there are jobs within your degree area, and different schools have job boards. Some schools have outside companies that will help you recruit for jobs. Sometimes you just need someone to help you understand how to like reach out and cold call a company and say, look, I would love to work for you. Right. But there are opportunities to do that. It's not like a shrinking economy, or like there are not like negative job starts happening every single month. They're out there for students, and you just have to often create that opportunity and find someone to help you with that. So, right. But to the headline, I would say, like, I don't believe that that's necessarily true, and that you will find those opportunities if you put yourself in the right position to succeed.
So do you recommend a student coming to Ontario, like famous places like Toronto, Mississauga, Kitchener, and all this stuff, rather than going to a place which is small and trying to find some stable accommodation or job over there, because there are very less people over there, if you see one thing. Right, so what do you say?
It depends on what you're ultimately looking to do. So like, I wouldn't make a decision on program or city specifically based on part-time job opportunities available while you're in the program. When we're looking to talk with students, a lot of them are saying like, look, I want to go to Ontario, Kitchener-Waterloo, Toronto, because I have family near there. Well, the cost of living will be higher, but also there are more job opportunities. It sort of balances out. But every person is an individual case, and you can't treat it as like, here's my blanket piece of advice. You need to understand, okay, if you're looking to come here and do like a vet tech degree because you want to work in a veterinarian business, well, what provinces or cities are hiring for that? If it's most of them, then you can make a decision that says, okay, well, my budget is this, and I want to spend this much on cost of living. I want access to a part-time job, but I also want to be close to an airport and near my support system. Well, that changes where you go, 100%. Right? So you can look at it in terms of the number of students and the number of jobs and the opportunity, but it's very case by case. And I would try to understand what is your ultimate goal in terms of PGWP and PR and the job you want, and then we can work back from there to understand, right? And you can do research, but oftentimes there are people that can help you with that as well.
Okay, so basically you're trying to say that a student coming from India has to first focus on his course, and after he knows that his course demand is in this place, then he can figure out that my budget is this and I can go there.
Exactly. Like if I'm the student, I would say, okay, the job that I want in 2 or 3 years is marketing manager at a company that does, like, I don't know, sell, maybe it doesn't even matter what the company does, right? You want to work in marketing. So I would try to understand and work with someone to say, where are the marketing jobs? And what are the colleges that the business and marketing programs get me to those jobs in a predictable and reliable way? That's how I would come up with my list of programs. And then I would say, okay, based on that, and I know that my budget is maybe 25,000 Canadian dollars a year for housing, for tuition, for life expenses. And I know that I also want to have a part-time job. Okay, which schools and programs that fit that recruiting path fit that budget? And then I would limit my list to those and say, okay, within those cities, where do I have the best chance at cost of living within my budget and the best chance at a part-time job to subsidize my costs, right? And then I would build my application that way, and then I would submit to the schools, and then, go through the visa process and that type of thing.
Perfect. I have one more question. Like a student coming after 12th, usually I get a lot of messages from such students like, I'm coming after 12 to Canada. And as you know, the cutoff is like skyrocketed as of now. So what that guy has to do, because I think his PR it's going to be very, very difficult if you see in that context.
Yeah, like we're still, the view is developing and we're looking at the data. Basically, you'll be applying for undergrad programs, right? At either the college or the university level. Do you mean what do they have to do in terms of having the best chance of success? Because oftentimes the undergrad students will still do a postgrad program or a master's program. They'll extend afterwards. To put yourself in the best position to get into an undergrad program, that's going to be based on your marks, right? Like oftentimes, well, first you have to have a very strong EP test, whatever the test is at that school and that visa requires. The next is like your grades are going to have to be competitive, right? Because your undergrad is a little bit different than postgrad, especially when you look at university and college.
But to correct you, people coming from India, they don't usually go for 4 years of undergrad over here. They try to take 2 years of course.
In the college program?
Yeah, in the college program.
Sorry, okay, I thought you were talking about university. So your grades are going to be important. And it depends. If your goal is to go from the undergrad program into the job market, there might be varying rates of PGWP and PR, and depending on what your goal is afterwards. I think that, like, once again, understanding what your objective is really important. Because if you think you're only going to do those 2 years and then you want to figure out the best path, I would look at the province level in Canada, what are the PGWP and PR rates of those specific pathways. And if the pathway that you want, just pick the one that has the highest success rate for that and meets the most of your criteria in a school experience and living experience, right? I'm not sure if the acceptance rates would be higher or lower. We don't see that with our students. Like, they seem to get in at the same rate, whether you're applying for a 2-3 year undergrad or like a 1 to 2 year postgrad program at the college level specifically. PR TBD. It seems to vary by province.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to ask, like, because usually people had questions related to this stuff. I think it might be helpful to people planning to come to Canada in future. So thank you for your time, by the way. And
yeah, no problem.
Do you have anything to say?
No, I just think that, like, overall, I think that it's an incredible thing to be considering study abroad and going on that journey. You have to be brave. I think it's awesome. I think it can absolutely open incredible prospects. Make sure but it's also not for everybody. So make sure you do the research to understand exactly what it is you're looking for, and then work back to understand, program, college, city, province, and then work with someone that understands that pathway, that's looking out for your best interests. Especially if they're free, there's no reason to do it yourself and go through that complication. But overall, like, for the folks watching the video that are serious about this, congratulations. And I will reiterate, Canada is just as safe as it was a month ago. It is the most affordable of the major 4 destination countries. The return on the degree is incredible, and the lifestyle and the people are great. And so I wouldn't let that change, like short-term headlines, change your long-term view of Canada as a destination in general. And good luck. I do know that you have a higher likelihood of PR in the Western and Eastern provinces than you do Ontario, just because the numbers are so high and you usually have to apply with like a sponsor or like at least a job. But it doesn't mean that in Ontario is impossible. And there's more schools here, and the schools are generally like a little bit better in terms of the recruiting opportunities, because a lot of the jobs are where the people are. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right?
Perfect.
That's why, like, we can give tactical advice, but it's important that they think about their goal, because also living in, as you know, Vancouver versus Toronto versus, Barrie versus Kelowna versus like Halifax, they're also very, very different places. And so, yes, PR is like very important because that's like the ultimate goal, right?
Ultimate goal, yeah.
But like, you still have to experience the school in the province and the city for like 3 years, and there are cost of living implications. So it's hard to give a piece of advice because it's so nuanced to the person, right?
I think it will be useful because, as you said, first select the course and then with respect to that go on. So I think people will go
work back, right? And yeah. Okay, cool.